Hello everyone, I'm Parvinder Hothi. I am a research scientist and the lab supervisor at the Ivy Center at Swedish Neuroscience Institute. I will be talking about research ongoing at the Ivy Center, which is focused on targeting cancer stem cells for the treatment of glioblastoma. So cancer stem cells are believed to be a subpopulation of tumor-initiating cells that reside within tumors. They are responsible for tumor growth, resistance to therapy, and tumor recurrence. Hallmark characteristics of these cancer stem cells include the ability to self-renew, proliferate, and initiate tumors. Other common characteristics include stem cell marker expression and the ability to differentiate into the main CNS cell types, namely neurons, astrocytes, and oligodendrocytes. A glioblastoma patient undergoes tumor resection, radiation, and chemotherapy with temozolomide as standard of care. This is effective in reducing the bulk of the tumor. However, these cancer stem cells persist because they are resistant to standard therapy, and they go on and they generate a secondary tumor and cause disease progression. What is the greatest challenge with treating these glioblastoma tumors? Each GBM tumor is different, and it's also believed that the subpopulation of cancer stem cells that reside within these tumors are also heterogeneous. So the big question is how best to treat these tumors, and how do we identify the best drug or combination of drugs for an individual patient? One model that we've adopted at the Ivy Center to study these cancer stem cells is to develop patient-derived stem cell lines. Once patients undergo resection, their tumor is brought up to the lab where we process this to release the tumor cells. We grow these cells in serum-free media with growth factors to preserve the stem-like phenotype. There are two culture conditions that can be used to grow these cells. They can be grown as adherent monolayers on laminin-coated flasks, or they can be grown in suspension as neurospheres. These cells can readily be frozen down and cryopreserved in liquid nitrogen, and they remain viable for several years. At the Ivy Center, using this methodology, we have generated over 300 of these patient-derived stem cell lines to date. We've verified that these cultures that we're generating preserve stem-like phenotype by ensuring that they are able to self-renew, they express neural stem cell markers, and they have the ability to differentiate. And the gold standard being that they can also, when injected in mice, go on to form tumors. We've used these cancer stem cells to perform high-throughput drug screening. What's involved with this methodology is that the cancer stem cells are added to 384 well plates. A different drug is then added to multiple wells at different concentrations. These cells and drugs are co-incubated. At the end of the assay, we lyse the cells and we measure the luminescence to determine how many viable cells remain after exposure to a given drug. The advantage of this HTS platform is the ability to screen a very large number of drugs in a clinically relevant time frame. We have the ability to screen up to 50,000 compounds in a couple of weeks. This is an example of the data that's generated when we do these HTS assays. These are known as dose-response curves, which are essentially tumor cell viability against increasing drug concentration. The data is fit to a sigmoidal function to determine a parameter known as half maximum inhibitory concentration, or IC50, which is essentially a measure of potency of a drug. The lower the IC50, the more potent the drug. So at the Ivy Center, we've taken our cancer stem cell lines and our HTS methodology, and we used it to launch a clinical trial, a phase 01 study of combination drug therapy for glioblastoma. The primary objective of this study was to determine the feasibility and the safety of the HTS approach. In the phase 0 part of this study, patients are consented for the collection of their tissue and the generation of a cancer stem cell line. We then assay these cells against a panel of 76 FDA-approved drugs. Once the combination drug therapy has been approved by DSMB and IRB, we wait until patients are eligible for treatment, which is when they show signs of disease progression. Once progression is observed, they are then eligible to enroll in phase 1 of the study, which is the treatment phase. The overall goal of this study was to treat 10 patients under phase 1. The flow diagram here outlines the steps that are involved. So in phase 0, patients with newly diagnosed glioblastoma are consented. They undergo surgery. We isolate the cancer stem cells from their tissue specimen. We perform the HTS assays using the 76 drug panel. Dose response analysis is performed. The study team reviews the candidates and selects 3 suitable drug candidates for each patient. The drug candidates then undergo a drug-drug interaction review by a team of pharmacists to ensure there are no overlapping toxicities. Following pharmacy review, these drug candidates are then reviewed by a data safety monitoring board and IRB to approve the treatment plan for each patient. Once a patient shows signs of disease progression, they are then consented and enrolled in phase 1, and they are eligible to start their investigational 3-drug combination therapy. The panel of drugs that we use for the HTS assays contain a variety of drug classes and mechanisms of action. There are several common chemotherapy agents used for cancer therapy, but there are also several drugs that are not typically used in cancer therapy, such as antivirals, anti-inflammatories, and antipsychotic agents. This is an example of the data generated during the current ongoing clinical study. Dose response curves for 4 GBM patients. You'll see in panel A, there is a varied response in IC50 for 4 of these patients against a given drug. A more dramatic response can be seen in panel B, for which we do see for some drugs and some cancer stem cell lines where there are clear responders and non-responders. So in panel B, you can see there are 3 patient-derived cancer stem cell lines that essentially did not respond to this given drug, but then there is one that is clearly sensitive and a responder to a given drug. So in addition to ranking these drugs in terms of their IC50 and potency, we do look at other parameters when selecting which drug candidates to treat individual patients with, namely the ability of the drug candidates to cross the blood-brain barrier. We do this by evaluating the polar surface area of the drug candidates. The consensus is that drugs that have a polar surface area of less than 90 angstroms are most likely to readily penetrate the blood-brain barrier. We also take the brain-to-plasma concentration ratio into consideration when selecting the drug combination therapy. For example, if we look at temozolomide, it has a polar surface area of approximately 80 angstroms and does readily cross the blood-brain barrier. This is a summary of the 9 patients that have been treated to date under phase 1 of the study. Each patient received an individualized 3-drug cocktail, and as summarized in the table, no serious adverse events occurred, and no unexpected adverse events occurred throughout the study for all 9 patients treated to date. Of these 9 patients, 2 are still alive. Of the 7 that were treated under the study and for whom we have survival data, the average overall survival for those 7 patients is 22 months. So next steps for the current ongoing study, which is treating recurrent GBM patients, we hope to treat the final remaining patient and publish this data set very soon. Although the study involves treating 10 patients in phase 1, a lot of data was generated in the phase 0 of the study. We actually collected cancer stem cells and performed HTS assays on a total of 45 patients. So we have a large data set of drug sensitivity profiles. We are using this data set to understand the sensitivity trends that we see and identify drugs that synergize well together. We're doing this in collaboration with the Institute for Systems Biology. We have an R01 to study this work further. It will be a systems approach to uncover the gene networks that are responsible for driving drug resistance in glioblastoma. So one of the biggest limitations of the current study that's treating recurrent GBM patients is that we are isolating cancer stem cells from the primary tumor, but then we have to wait until patients have disease progression before they can receive their drug therapy, at which point we don't know how relevant those drug sensitivity profiles are and how the cancer stem cell population may have changed. So this, combined with the safety data we've observed in our current study, led us to develop a new protocol for newly diagnosed glioblastoma. This protocol is close to being submitted to the FDA. It will involve the same cancer stem cell HTS approach. We will isolate cancer stem cells. We will perform the HTS assay against a panel of FDA-approved drugs. It will undergo the same safety review by pharmacy, DSMB, and IRB. Once approved, patients are eligible to receive this treatment alongside standard of care at the time of radiation and chemotherapy with TMZ. So the biggest advantage of this new study is, of course, that the patients do not have to wait for tumor progression to receive their personalized drug therapy. We know the methodology and analysis pipeline is well established, as well as our ongoing collaboration with ISB will generate complementary genomic data for this work. We have promising safety data from the first HTS study and potential signs of efficacy in some patients. We've been able to further refine our GBM drug panel to use the drugs that were most potent from the first study, but also include new agents for testing. Of course, the greatest advantage of the new study is that patients do not have to wait for reoccurrence to be eligible for their individualized treatment. The other exciting opportunity we see for this new study is the ability to generate primary recurrent matched cancer stem cell pairs. So the new protocol allows us to collect tissue and create cancer stem cells from the primary tumor and the recurrent tumor should a patient undergo a second resection. So the dose response curves shown here are examples of some preliminary data that I was able to collect from one patient for which we were able to establish a matched cancer stem cell pair. What's shown here is that the cancer stem cells derived from the primary tumor, shown in red, are much more sensitive than the matched recurrent derived cancer stem cells. So again, this reinforces the need to be giving patients their personalized drug therapy close to tumor resection and not waiting until disease progression. I'd like to end by thanking all the team members at the Ivy Center for the great work that they do and their support of the HTS study, and thank you all for listening.